Is Miguel Diaz still the chosen one of this story? While that may be up for debate at this point, given how Cobra Kai Season 4 and Season 5 have played out, we still can't deny that his arc post-Season 3 has had many twists and turns just like the first 3 seasons did. From bowing out of a tournament to finding out about his father and putting his rivalry with Robby to rest, Miguel has had an awesome journey thus far. This is why Miguel Diaz continues to evolve. Let's talk about Miguel's need for a father, his relationships with Robby and Sam, how his fights in the All Valley would have turned out, and more. Let's recap on what we know about Miguel Diaz so far. Since this is a continuation of my previous video, Why Miguel Diaz is the Chosen One, I'm only going to recap the events of Miguel's arc in Seasons 4 and 5. Feel free to skip to the next chapter to avoid the recap, but be warned, you may miss important details later on in the video. Although Miguel is willing to work together with the students of Miyagi-Do, he and the rest of the students are caught up between the struggle of his sensei and Mr. LaRusso attempting to work together. Miguel brings up Rocky 3 to Johnny about how Rocky and Apollo put their rivalry behind them as an example and how he can do the same, while also discussing with Sam other ideas on how to make the alliance work. Miguel, Sam, and the rest of Miyagi Fang go along with Hawk's idea to build an Okinawan sparring deck which brings Johnny and Daniel together. When asked about his aspirations, Miguel earns the respect of Daniel but feels that he isn't good enough for Sam given Daniel's success with his dealership. However, he later finds out that he has more in common with Daniel than he realizes and begins to excel in his Miyagi-Do training. This causes Johnny to grow jealous as Miguel starts to spend more time with Daniel, relating how he wishes he knew more about his father. At the drive-in, Miguel uses one of Daniel's lessons and old prank methods to avoid a fight with Cobra Kai, much to the ire of Johnny. He also voices his concern about Johnny fighting Daniel, as he wants to learn both methods of karate and tries to convince his sensei that there's another way, but the storm of senseis occurs, though it ends in a draw. Miguel tries to get Johnny to stop arguing with Daniel, but as the alliance dissolves, he sticks by his sensei. Although his plea to work things out with Mr. LaRusso falls on deaf ears, he nonetheless sticks by his sensei with his crazy ideas for recruiting and motivates Johnny to not give up on molding a female champion. Not long after, Miguel finds out that his mother and Johnny have been dating and seems okay with it at first, but feels Johnny giving him special treatment and training, and after a heart-to-heart, tells him how he feels and relates that he wants him to continue being his sensei and that he's not afraid of a little pain when it comes to karate. Thanks to Silver's plan, Robby and Tori throw Miguel off balance at the prom, resulting in a brief scuffle which Sam and Miguel lose. Seeking out Johnny, who is drunk because of his loss to Silver and failure to protect Robby, he helps him to bed and says that he loves Johnny, only for Johnny to say, "I love you too, Robby," thinking he's talking to his own son, which breaks Miguel's heart. Because of this and how prom night ended with Sam, Miguel's not 100% focused at the tournament, but manages to make it to the semifinals. During his match with Hawk, he strains his back and feeling the pressure from Johnny, decides to withdraw from the tournament to head to Mexico and find his father. After some run-ins with a few dangerous folks, Miguel finds his father Hector Salazar, who is now with Maria and her son Luis. When Miguel saves Luis from nearly being hit by a car, Hector invites him over as thanks and attempts to get to know him more, inviting him to El Hoyo Verde. Because of Hector's facade, Miguel is angry at Carmen for having lied to him about his father. However, with Johnny and Robby showing up in female body inspector shirts, this causes Hector to be paranoid, who roughs up Miguel thinking he's a Fed and later informs him that he regrets nothing in Ecuador, specifically Carmen and her unborn child. Miguel calls his mother, telling her that he's coming home when he realizes Johnny and Robby came looking for him. Back home, Miguel consults both Hawk and Dimitri on how to make things right with Sam. He meets up with her and apologizes for not being sensitive to her needs and respects her wishes for wanting to break up to give herself time, even though he's very hurt by the decision. Although Miguel wants to get along with Robby for Johnny's sake, due to the frustration of breaking up with Sam and misunderstanding Robby's actions as he tries to convince Tori and Kenny to leave Cobra Kai, he nearly gets into a fight with Robby until Johnny breaks it up. When Johnny unsuccessfully tries to convince Miguel and Robby to get along, thanks to a suggestion from Daniel, Miguel and Robby fight out their differences and put their rivalry to rest as the two are excited for their new sibling. The two brothers then rejoin Miyagi Fang and strengthen their karate skills under Chosen as the reformed alliance trains for the inevitable fight against Silver's Cobra Kai. Miguel, although somewhat awkwardly at times, still respects Sam's request to be friends and helps demonstrate Eagle Fang's offense during the presentation for the Sakai Takai Council and offers words of encouragement to Sam during her match against Devin. The following day, after Sam sees Miguel with Holly at the after party, Miyagi Fang resolves to expose Silver after Tori tells Sam that the All Valley was rigged. When the gang learns that Stingray framed Kreese, Miguel hears out Sam's frustration and, learning from squashing his own rivalry with Robby, encourages Sam to reach out to Tori. Miyagi-Fang raids Cobra Kai, and after saving Robby from Kenny, Miguel observes not only Silver being exposed, but also defeated by Daniel. After the police arrive, Miguel and Sam reconcile and become a couple once again. Let's first talk about a major arc of Miguel's journey, his need for a father figure and mentor. Ironically, this arc mirrors what I talked about in my Why There's No Hope for Robby video. Although not as severe as what Robby went through, Miguel was let down by Johnny, with Johnny even telling Robby this in Season 5. There's no denying that Johnny is the closest thing that Miguel has to a father figure, but because of his rivalry with Daniel, this interferes with his relationship with Miguel. Again, this is something Johnny admits to not only Daniel, specifically stating that Miguel would have been a stronger fighter, but also admits this to Robby, stating his rivalry with Daniel got in the way of a good thing he had with LaRusso. Some of the early signs of this occur in the episode Then Learn Fly. Although Daniel respects Miguel's good grades and aspirations, the latter does not feel he's good enough for Sam or her family because of his family's financial situation, even after learning that Daniel grew up in Reseda in Season 3 and Daniel's success with his dealership. However, Daniel admits that his financial situation wasn't the best when he finished high school, as he blew the Daniel Fund on a trip to Okinawa to be there for Mr. Miyagi as his sensei's father was passing away, and even after winning the money back, he put it into a bonsai shop that didn't go exactly as planned. Miguel takes this lesson of reaching his goals on a circular path and applies it to his training later on, and is crowned as an official student of Miyagi-Do in a callback to the first Karate Kid movie, which begins to affect Johnny's insecurities. As time goes on, it's clear that Miguel is learning Miyagi-Do more hands-on than most, even calling Daniel sensei, which further causes Johnny to be jealous. While I don't think Miguel was purposely hanging with Daniel more, I think he found someone he could relate to on certain topics that maybe he didn't get to talk out with Johnny. For example, Daniel understands Miguel not being a fan of his mother going on dates. He also tells Miguel that just because he doesn't have a father, doesn't mean that someone can't fill that role, implying that both he and Johnny could fill that role, as the two are technically still on good terms at this point. Miguel confides in Daniel that he's curious about his father and looked him up, foreshadowing what happens at the end of the season and wants to at least get some answers. While Daniel understands this, he also points out that his mother Lucille moved him out of New Jersey so he could have a better life, implying that maybe Carmen did it for the right reasons and that perhaps his father wasn't someone worth being around. When Johnny finally catches up with Miguel, the latter states that just because a way is different doesn't mean it's wrong, and would still like for Johnny to make his favorite meal, showing he still respects both of his senseis equally. Because Miguel provoked Cobra Kai, when in actuality it was technically Robby misunderstanding what happened between Kenny and Hawk, something that reoccurs in Season 5, Johnny begins to grow tired of Daniel's influence and, as we see, wants to settle who is the best teacher in a 3-point fight. In a parallel to Sam trying to convince Daniel that there's more than just one way, Miguel expresses to Johnny that he wishes that neither of them would fight and that they should continue to learn both styles, but Johnny doesn't want to hear it, at least initially, until he realizes later on that Miguel might be right. During the 3-point fight, Miguel still looks reluctant as his two teachers are fighting, even when raising the flag for Daniel and noticeably giving Johnny a look when Daniel leads the fight in points. After the match ends in a draw, when the two senseis continue to argue, Miguel pleads with Johnny to stop, but ultimately decides to leave with Eagle Fang when Daniel and Johnny agree to dissolve the alliance. In Kicks Get Chicks, when Johnny finds out about the gender divisions, Miguel suggests that he should talk to Mr. LaRusso as they would have a good chance with Sam on their team, but Lawrence stubbornly refuses to budge on his stance and decides to recruit instead. Despite this, he is still fully supported by Diaz, even if the recruiting methods are questionable at times, and is convinced that he can mold a champion and to not give up. Minefields is a turning point for this arc, as Carmen notices that Miguel has been training harder than usual and that he should slow down, but he responds that he likes it. Notice his expression when Carmen walks in at the beginning of this scene. His back seems stiff, symbolizing his strained relationship with Johnny and foreshadowing his pulled muscle in the season finale. When Johnny and Carmen come clean about their relationship, Carmen notes that while her son may seem accepting of it, he'll still need time and needs room to adjust. Johnny takes note of this and becomes overprotective of Miguel during training, which is called out by his fellow students, and then is conflicted between Miguel and Carmen when Diaz comes home late from hanging with Sam, causing him to feel weird. He confides in Sam about this until Johnny gets Miguel to play hooky so they can have a one-on-one. Sensei Lawrence admits that he was scared not only with Miguel but Robby, as he was afraid of turning out like Kreese and Sid and freaked out. Johnny is afraid of the truth of why his father left, and like Miguel, feels cheated when his mom tried to make things better like Carmen did. Even though Miguel knows things will change, he wants to continue to learn from Johnny. However, in party time, things start to take a turn for the worse. Rosa convinced that Miguel looks more like his father now, and with a distraction from Robby and Tori, he's now imbalanced in his fight alongside Sam. Robby's taunt of "you think my dad cares about you" clearly affects Miguel so much that he goes straight to Johnny's apartment after the fight is over. After helping him to bed, Johnny admits that he wants to be a father to him, and although Miguel states that he loves him, Johnny says, "I love you too, Robby," making him think that what Robby said at Stingray's house was true. Because of this, Miguel is not in the right headspace at the All Valley and is misunderstood by his sensei even more when he claims to know what's wrong with him when Johnny starts talking about Sam. During his match against Post in the quarterfinals, he throws a kick that likely contributed to the pulled muscle in his back. After Devin's match against Tori, Johnny puts even more pressure on Miguel by saying "good chance," and despite some support from Daniel, is ordered to take his friend out. Confused by this mindset, he asks Johnny, "Whose side are you on?" Specifically, Lawrence calls back to the killer instinct he had, the same thing Kreese said about Miguel in Season 2 after he defeated Hawk at Coyote Creek. This would also explain why Miguel would ask which side he's on if he's bringing back Kreese's teachings. As we see, the pulled muscle occurs and Miguel calls out for his sensei, almost like a child calling out for his father. After being seen by the medic, he heeds her and Carmen's advice by listening to his pain and voices his concern to Johnny even after stretching and feeling the pain, who encourages him to show LaRusso and the world who's best, making Miguel realize that he cares more about the rivalry than him. When talking things out with Sam, whom he likely hasn't communicated with since the prom after party, he confides in her that Johnny isn't his dad and decides to leave for Mexico, leaving a note behind for his family. While in Mexico, Miguel puts himself through some risky situations. He gets taken advantage of by Owen and his gang and finds a Hector, though someone presumably very dangerous, as he gets into a fight with one of his minions immediately. When he finds the real Hector, Miguel slowly follows his father, and you can tell that he longs to be part of the family his father now has. Whether it was to make an impression or a big brotherly instinct, Diaz puts himself in harm's way and rescues Luis, somewhat mirroring Daniel rescuing Yuna in Karate Kid Part 2. While denying the invitation to dinner at first, you can tell that Miguel appreciates being called family and enjoys eating with the Salazars. In Mole, he tries to tell Hector the real reason he came down, but he feels unsure and somewhat reluctant to say that he's his son. Ironically, a parallel between Hector and Johnny is that they both say that either Robby or Miguel can't leave Mexico without a few good stories. Believing that Hector is a legitimate businessman, Miguel angrily accuses Carmen of lying without realizing who his father really is, even agreeing to the toast at El Hoyo Verde of putting the past behind, even though he barely takes a sip of his liquor, as Miguel starts to follow Hector's advice of leaving Carmen behind in the US. It should be noted that there is some symbolism in their outfits here. Miguel and Hector are both wearing blue shirts with their coat, a color typically associated with Miyagi-Do and Daniel as part of the blue Oni trope, symbolizing serenity and control. The difference between the two is that Miguel is wearing a white coat, while Hector is wearing a gray coat, symbolizing his ambiguity. However, when Johnny and Robby show up in their FBI shirts, Hector becomes extremely paranoid and grabs Miguel by his shirt, mistaking him for a Fed. He asks to see Miguel's phone, and realizing that he's just a kid, apologizes with "people aren't always what they seem, you can never be too sure," which ironically has a double meaning and hints that Carmen is right about Hector being dangerous. When he takes Miguel to the restaurant that is closed, he further displays his paranoia and dangerous character by being the first major character to pull out a gun in the Miyagi-verse. Despite him telling Miguel about the Icarus story and how it could apply to Sam and Robby, Diaz stands his ground mentally and realizes his father doesn't know what he's talking about, especially when Hector insults Carmen and Rosa, realizing they were right about him. Hearing that his birth father regrets nothing, Miguel is visibly upset and even shakes his head when being told, "Take care of yourself, kid." Now, even with all of that, I would like to point out a small detail in this scene. There's another parallel between Hector and Johnny. Earlier in Long Way From Home, Johnny buys Chichi errands in El Mastigador, which we can assume that Robby presumably eats, as he uses the candy to win the pepper eating contest. Hector offers Miguel chicharron, but the latter denies it. You can tell Hector is slightly hurt at this, in contrast to the speech about Icarus before. Apologizing and telling Carmen she was right and he made a mistake, Miggy tells his mother that he's alright when the one person who really is his father shows up, Johnny. This arc is mostly wrapped up until Extreme Measures, where Johnny helps his two sons put their rivalry to rest thanks to a suggestion from Daniel, which I'll talk about later on, bringing them all together as a family. It should also be noted that in Takai, Johnny makes sure Miguel wants to compete on his own and not because of him, admitting that he made that mistake back at the All Valley. While we're on that subject, let's talk about his interactions with Robby in Season 4 and Season 5. After the events of December 19th, Miguel doesn't come face to face with his rival until the episode Bicephaly, where acting on Daniel's advice, tries to de-escalate and get Miyagi Fang to save it until the tournament. Even with Robby reminding him of his back injury, Diaz still keeps his cool and tricks Cobra Kai by pulling another page out of Daniel's book, wetting them with sprinklers. Of course, we see the two couples subtly interact with each other via eye contact at the prom, and Robby purposely bumping into Miguel. Interestingly enough, when Robby notices Miguel at Stingray's party, he looks at him rather calmly in comparison to their last dialogue interaction. Presumably, this could be because Robby is happy with Tori and is now less concerned about his rivalry with Miguel. However, this changes when Sam starts to fight with Tori near the pool, as in a reversal of events of Season 2, it is now Miguel stopping both Sam and Tori, where Robby is now the one misunderstanding that Miguel was trying to de-escalate the fight. The two are practically tied for hits, if you count the chokehold, and Robby gets the upper hand by using Miguel's momentum against him in a Miyagi-Do-like manner. As mentioned in my Why There Is Hope for Robby video, despite the two having bad blood, Robby gives Miguel a nod of respect after Miguel wins a fight in the qualifying matches. As Diaz watches Keen vs. Payne, he noticeably shows some disappointment when witnessing his rival being corrupted by Cobra Kai, possibly out of both empathy and pity. The two do not cross paths again until Johnny finds Miguel in Mexico, and not having seen Robby since the All Valley, shows a sign of concern when realizing Keen is present. In the next episode, Johnny mentions that the two were quiet on the way back to Carmen. During Downward Spiral, Hawk and Miguel attempt to break up the fight and ask Robby what he's doing, but Robby warns him to stay out of it. Before the two can talk about it, the lifeguard breaks it up. Miguel once again comes to Hawk's aid when Robby, not realizing Kenny started it, pushes Hawk into the water and shoves Robby, resulting in both dojos being kicked out of the park. Diaz confronts Keen about this, also upset that this drama caused a missed opportunity to connect with Sam afterward, and instigates the argument, swearing that he and Robby are not friends when Johnny suggests that they should be. In extreme measures, the rivalry comes to a head due to Johnny's attempt at getting the two to patch things up. Fittingly enough, Miguel and Robby wear very similar colors this episode, gray and red, showing that they're different but same, and the fact that they are neutral but aligned with Eagle Fang, and to an extent Miyagi-Do, as red is the color associated with Johnny as part of the red Oni trope, symbolizing brawn, strong emotions, and a zest for life. Even though the stepbrothers are still at odds, they notably finish each other's sentences both at Olive Garden and Johnny's apartment, and are in agreement with what Johnny is trying to do. During the escape room shenanigans, Miguel constantly eyes Robby angrily while the sensei explains, and is again notably aggressive with Robby, calling him runner-up. When the two finally decide to fight it out, they are nearly evenly matched at first, trading very similar attacks, until Miguel lands first blood, literally. It should be noted here that Miguel, like Daniel, presses the attack, and in a parallel to Season 2, Robby and Miguel end up fighting up the stairs again. Miguel this time gets the upper hand and delivers vicious punches as the memories come flooding back from their last big fight, getting the anger out of his system. Although he yells and prepares to deliver a final blow to Robby, who is now this time against the rail, Miguel has a change of heart, realizing he's better than this, and holds back. He explains to Robby that he used karate to be confident and to find balance within himself, not to hurt people. Diaz also listens to Robby and understands him for once, forgiving him, and hugs Johnny with Robby as they finally made up, happy to hear the news about the baby on the way. Fittingly enough, Miguel looks to Carmen for approval when Robby asks her if she's okay with him eating dinner. From this point on, we see the two develop a brotherly bond. Notably in Ouroboros, after patching things up with Daniel, Robby stands right next to Miguel, who gives him a smile and a slight nod. The first two are the ones that bow almost in unison to their senseis. In Bad Eggs, Miguel is the one to tell Hawk to relax, who is still upset with Robby for what happened at the water park. Also, in contrast to previous seasons, Miguel is no longer insecure with Robby hanging with Sam, and trusts both of them, something that Hector tried to tell him about out of paranoia. In Taikai, when preparing for the presentation, Miguel gives a nod of respect to Robby and leads both him and Hawk in offense during said presentation. The two also respect Hawk and vote him to be the one to fight in the boys' 3-point match, as he beat Robby fair and square and Miguel bowed out of the tournament. After Sam's fight, Miguel and Robby are seen high-fiving each other and hugging each other when finding out Miyagi Fang qualifies for the tournament, and the two have their arms around each other when Johnny tells them to have fun with their celebration. And of course, one of my favorite moments of their new friendship is when Miguel saves Robby from Kenny and Cobra Kai, pulling a page out of Johnny's book by using the same knee technique that Johnny used against Hyun Woo. I personally am glad that the two have finally put their rivalry to rest, and considering that I have been a fan of both of their characters for quite some time, it was fitting that it took one last decisive fight to put it behind them. However, given the final trailer for Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1, it looks like there will be one more fight between the two. I think this may be more for who is going to lead the dojo in a competitive spar, so we can only wait and see how it will turn out. Let's also talk about Miguel's relationship with Sam and how that has played out for the last 2 seasons. Like Robby, Miguel and Sam caught on that there was a benefit to learning each other's styles, despite some reluctance at first, and did what they could respectively to push their senseis into working together. Both would also adopt their new sensei's respective traits, where Sam would lean more into her aggression, while Miguel would be more defensive and use more of his mind to get through certain scenarios. After Johnny and Daniel's match, the two try to get their senseis to work together, but as the dojo splits, this notably causes some strain on their relationship, at least until Sam rejoins Eagle Fang in secret. The couple looks forward to prom and enjoys themselves until Robby and Tori show up as part of Silver's plan to throw both off balance, but more importantly, Miguel as he explains the crease. This plan works as it causes the Miyagi-Fang couple to be distracted, as it's clear both Sam and Miguel are upset about the past and find themselves at different points staring at Robby and Tori. It's also worth taking a closer look at the after-party fight. Notice that Robby and Tori work together as one to defend themselves and knock down Sam and Miguel. Sam tries to attack first but misses, and Miguel follows suit until Tori's kick knocks them down. The two then blame each other for their part in the fight and don't talk again until right before Hawk's fight against Robby. Leading up to that point, it's clear that they both want to say something to one another, as neither catches the other staring at them at appropriate moments. The two state they both feel pressure from their senseis, and it seems that Miguel is ready to apologize but is interrupted by the announcer, similar to how the bell interrupted Sam in Season 2. Miguel wishes Sam luck with a kiss and doesn't talk to her until right before he finds his dad. The phone call quickly turns tense as they both feel like they're not in each other's corner, with Miguel wanting answers about his dad and Sam feeling upset about what happened at the tournament. In parallel, the two consult their friend groups as they are worried about each other and playing with fire, with Miguel buying a necklace to remind Sam of their first date and Sam trying to find herself in the sensory deprivation chamber. Miguel, taking Johnny's advice, apologizes for everything up to that point, and Sam does the same. Because of what happened at the tournament and everything else leading up to this point, Sam realizes that she needs a break from both Karate and Miguel. Even though this isn't what Diaz wants, or LaRusso for that matter, he respects that despite being deeply hurt by the entire situation, and wants to continue to be her friend and be there for her no matter what. At the water park, they both try to respect their personal space and almost reconnect, but as mentioned before, the drama between Miyagi-Fang and Cobra Kai prevents them from doing that. Miguel and Sam talk face to face once again in Bad Eggs, where Diaz instantly puts his guard up when he realizes he's not alone, but lets it down quickly when he sees who it is. Again, he tries not to make it awkward and is happy for Sam before even saying it, even thanking her for helping him and Robby get along. It's also worth pointing out that Miguel and Sam smile at each other when they realize Anthony is right, most likely proud that he is learning from the fellow students. When protecting the eggs from Chosen, both Sam and Miguel are able to work together where she holds Chosen down while Miguel lands a kick. In her fight against Devin, it is Miguel who gives Sam a pep talk that it's not just him who believes in her, but also the entire dojo who is in her corner. He's also optimistic during the fight, knowing that she's the better fighter, and hugs Sam both when she wins the match and when Miyagi-Fang is officially in the Sakai Takai. Despite the two being broken up, Miguel feels bad about the kiss with Holly and tries to find Sam, and Sam realizes she's not over Miguel as she thought. Thankfully, Sam respects that Miguel shouldn't have to apologize for his actions at the after party, but Miguel points out that she got back into karate and is upset that Miguel was kissing someone else and knows that something is bothering her. When she tells him about how a lot of the events up until now were based on a lie at the All Valley, Miguel puts things into perspective that while it was tough for Tori to admit that she didn't rightfully win, she did so at such a big risk and hints that it's up to Sam for what to do next. This comes because of his maturity after putting things to rest with Robby and is what gets Sam and Tori to work together. During the raid on Cobra Kai, Miguel and Sam check on each other while fighting it out against their opponents, and Miguel sits next to Sam once Silver is defeated. He admits that even though he wasn't okay with breaking things off, he knew she wasn't okay and respected her wishes because he loved her. Sam tells Miguel she loves him too, and the two share a kiss. Given how things started from Season 1 up until this point, it's interesting to see how their relationship had so many twists and turns. It makes sense that they're finally back together now because it was ultimately the rivalry between their senseis that had so much effect on them, whether it was Daniel forbidding Sam to associate with anybody in Cobra Kai, trying to get Johnny and Daniel to work together, and how the pressure of the All Valley also affected their relationship. Though it might be a far-fetched idea, I would love to see a double date between Miguel, Sam, Robby, and Tori in Season 6. Now here's a big question on everyone's mind, and something I previously talked about in a short. Would Miguel have been able to defeat either Hawk or Robby in Season 4? Unfortunately, no. He just wasn't ready. As Silver predicted, his plans with both having Robby and Tori go to the prom together and also defeating Johnny threw Miguel off balance. It also didn't help that Miguel wanted answers about who his father was, and because of the various factors contributing to this, he just didn't have his head in the game. Miguel being at odds with Sam didn't help either, and with the increasing pressure from Johnny, it wasn't going to end well for Miguel. Now as far as technique wise, as we see in his fight with Robby in Season 5, Diaz most likely would have at least landed 1 point on Hawk if he had landed the flying tornado kick, and may have been evenly matched with Robby, as he was also in Cobra Kai longer than Robby was, but considering his back strain, he still would have been at a disadvantage. It's also worth noting that like Robby, he would have also been distracted and would have lost the match. Even in his match with Hawk, Johnny continuously pressured Miguel. Given Johnny's previous lesson when the two were in Cobra Kai, Eli may have also called for the match to stop, as despite Miguel saying he wouldn't hold back, he would have known something was wrong and would want to fight Miguel at his strongest. Perhaps this is a friendly spar we could see in Season 6. Here are my final thoughts on Miguel and what we can see from him in the future. I think what made his character stand out so much in Season 5 specifically is that when he had Robby against the railing during their fight, he could have easily shown no mercy. But even after how it ended last time, Miguel was still the bigger person and forgave Robby, as he knew injuring his rival would just start the cycle all over again. It echoes back to what Bobby Brown said in Season 3. You don't do the right thing because it always works out. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Like his fellow Miyagi Fangs, Miguel saw the benefit of forming one's way and in some cases, followed both of his sensei's examples and lessons when it came to hashing things out, advising others to not hold on to grudges, defending his loved ones, and to stay close to those near to his heart. Like Daniel, he'll continue to fight for what he believes in, and I think it's appropriate that he's going to help lead the dojo by example, and I can completely see him being one of the few to forgive Mitch and welcome him back into the dojo. With his growth in maturity, skill, and overall character, Miguel is a character you can't help but root for. Given my analysis of the Cobra Kai Season 6 teaser, I'm interested in seeing how his interactions with Sean and Kenny will play out, and can't wait to see that 2-on-2 matchup. I would also love to see his interaction with welcoming Tori to the dojo and how he'll lead Miyagi Fang by example. As I said in the beginning, while it's up for debate if Miguel is the hero of this story, we can certainly say he's one of them, and as long as he continues to keep an open mind and be forward thinking, he'll keep growing as both a student and a person. Like Miguel, Daniel was somebody who put his rivalry to rest and grew as a character. He's also a writing inspiration for Miguel as a character overall, and had a similar journey in Seasons 4 and 5.